Welcome to creating a level playing field for collaboration. How can we make a difference together in equity and mutuality instead of inviting people to participate in a project they do not own? In this series, we discover what works by sharing stories of lived experience from a diversity of wise guests, organizers, participants, facilitators, researchers of participatory projects. By sharing examples and insights, we want to contribute to co-creating a world that works for all. In this episode, we welcome Tineke Abma. Tineke, welcome.
Hi, Tony. Good to meet you.
And of course, we are very anxious to know why you are here, and maybe you can introduce yourself a little bit more.
Yeah, my name is Tineke Abma. I am a professor in arts and health at the Erasmus University and also a professor at the Leiden Medical Center focused on the participation of older people. And I am the executive director of Leiden Academy on Vitality and Aging. So these are my current positions. I've always had an interest in creating a space for all kinds of people to join. And I think that's the connection with your podcast series.
And I know you from your participatory studies, particularly with the elderly, because I find them fascinating and I learn a lot from them. So I hope you will share some of your experiences, some stories on how to create a level playing field for collaboration.
Yeah, thank you. When I started my research, I was part of a movement called user involvement. So there were many people in the healthcare field who were thinking about how can we engage and involve patients into research. Because until that moment, funding agencies and researchers were the ones who were determining what the research questions were. And many people were concerned that those questions formulated by those parties did not well reflect the issues of the end users, of patients themselves. So I got engaged in that field and I started to work with people with spinal cord injuries. That was one of my first projects. And that has been a key experience for me because I started to talk with people with spinal cord injury, what their concerns and issues were. And these were all over the place. These had to do with entering a medical field, communication with doctors, but it was also about having dreams, a planned career that got stuck. It was about not being taken seriously in society, sitting in a wheelchair, talking about you or treating you like a child. So they had all kinds of issues which they consider to be important. And after many interviews and focus groups, I also started to talk to the professionals, so the medical doctors, but also civil servants at the municipalities. And it was very fascinating to discover that their focus was very small. Their scope was very specific. And for example, most of the researchers in that field were focused on mobility. So all the research money was going into what someone with a wheelchair said, making the wheelchair more effective. But, that wasn't their issue in life. So the incongruence between what patients found important, all those issues related to their lives, versus what professionals found important was so obvious. And that was so convincing for me that we really need the knowledge and the ideas and the issues of people themselves. We need experiential knowledge in order to make research relevant for their lives. That was where my fascination and also my persuasion that we really need to create those, what you call level playing fields, to have the various types of knowledge on board in order to address issues that are relevant for people's lives.
Okay. And what happened?
Some of the established researchers were not amused by the research agenda that was formulated by the patients because that was not addressing what they were studying. On the other hand, there were also researchers like psychologists or sociologists who said, yeah, I want to enter that field of spinal cord injury, but I was never given a chance to do a project because the funding agency also focused on those medical issues. And now, because I also engaged the funding agencies also said we really need to broaden our research focus and have other researchers on board to have an impact as a funding agency, because we really want to do something that has also relevance for people, and that the audience and public also understands that we are there for people with spinal cord injury. So they broadened their agenda. New participants entered the field. And also, what many of the patients said was, we really need more applied research, because most of the researchers did fundamental research, which takes, of course, lots of years before someone will experience an improvement. So more applied research, and also more research on coping, on disability in society, making society more inclusive. So the funding agency really listened to the results of this project.
Okay, so the funding agencies play an important role. Maybe you have an example of a project you were involved in. How do you involve different disciplines and also the clients, the patients? Or is it still interviews or one-on-one?
Well, when I started, this was, I think, 15, 20 years ago. One of the first things I did was, I don't know anything about spinal cord injuries. So I phoned up the Patient Association for about, and people with spinal cord injuries were related somehow with this patient organization. And I asked them, are there people who are willing to work with me? Because I don't know this diagnosis. This is really new for me. And they really liked the idea to work with me. So the board said, yes, we want to work with you. And they also said, yeah, we have someone who we think could work with you as a sort of patient researcher. And it was really new in the field. So I got into contact with Elise Adriaanse, and she was in a wheelchair, and I had this fascination. What is spinal cord injury? Can you tell me more about it? How does it affect your life? And can we work together to do research? I remember I went to her house and I saw how her house was adjusted to she in a wheelchair, and to her children. So I really got to know her life world. And she sort of became a friend of mine. And yeah, and I really needed her. It was not because I wanted to please her, or no, I just, I needed her knowledge and I needed her network. And she really felt, I think, that we were going to be partners in that.
Well, it was more mutuality, more reciprocity than usual.
Yeah. So yeah, and yeah, I was really curious and fascinated, and I think that also helped that we both had this interest in what are the issues of patients. She knew, of course, as a person herself, some of the issues that bothered her, but she also got an interest in, let's go to the people who are members of the association and let's talk to them and see what are their issues. And we soon discovered that they really like to talk with each other. Interviews weren't the most important things. I mean, yeah, that was okay, but we saw that the need to meet each other and to exchange how everybody was dealing with this illness and how their families were dealing with. So from the start, this was really participatory, as coming together and really researching our lives and discovering among us what is our agenda, what is important for us. And often it also was an eye-opener for people that they, because they're often very isolated, didn't know or meet other members, and then they had, these meetings, and then they discovered, oh, such an illness, you don't have it on your own. It's also your partner and your family, and you cope in different manners. And how do you do that? There was a real positive energy. The interactions were also not as I am the researcher, I'm asking you the questions. No, we were all researching, what does it mean to have such an illness? We were all researchers, and that was the atmosphere. We were asking questions, we were listening to each other. We were thinking, who should know this? That was the kind of deliberation and dialogue that was going on, and it was very, very valuable for people themselves as also. Yeah.
And the results of that project, of that process? Of course, what you said, the recognition, meeting each other is also already a result. But
the recognition, the relational empowerment was, I think, also a very important outcome, that people, recognized that, the concerns I have with a society who is belittling me is not just something I do. This is, this is a broader societal issue, and we can collaborate to put this on the agenda also of policymakers and of funding agencies. I don't have to struggle with it myself. There are more people who, if we bring our strengths together, we will have a greater hearing. I really find that important, that research is not only for knowledge for outsiders, but that it helps the personal and mutual understanding of those whose work and life is at stake. So if they learn more, and if they get more grip on their lives, and if their critical consciousness is growing, I am happy. And of course, it's really nice that this was also picked up by the funding agency, and that they really redesigned their whole research program in the sense that they made it broader, opening up for other scholars, but also introducing the idea of perhaps we need patients on a scientific board. Why do we only have doctors on board? If it comes to the relevance, we also need people themselves. So then you got the discussion with the scientific board and discussion about relevance criteria. So it really had an impact on the whole system, you could say.
not only for this project, but also for the whole agenda.
Yeah, because I started with this project, and then people got interested. So other health charity organizations, gezondheidsfondsen, also got interested in this methodology, because I did not only do this project, but I also described the methodology I was developing along the way. And so other charity organizations also asked me, the Parkinson's Association, or people with kidney disease. They also asked me, we also like to develop such an integrative patient-led agenda. Can you do that with us?
Okay, and nowadays you also work with elderly people, even people with dementia. And how do you involve them? Because sitting and talking may not be the only way. So how do you invite them or involve them? How does it work?
Well, one of the first projects with older people I did in a nursing home, and I just went to their environment. So I didn't ask them to come to the university and join my project, but I just went to one of the nursing homes, the location where I was headed at that time at Maastricht University. And I just got curious, what does it mean to live in a nursing home? What are your issues? And one of the things was the food. They were really concerned about the food, the quality, the ambience, but they didn't know that of each other. And as we moved along, we decided to work with each other to see whether we could improve the meals. So again, I formed a sort of action group with older people. I think they were about 6 to 8 older ladies, different ages, various disabilities. And one of the challenges in that project was that they were kind of, they felt fear, they felt reluctance to share their critique on the nursing homes. They thought that is not something that is really chic, and perhaps this will have repercussions for my care. So they were anxious about that. Sometimes they shared stories, and then they said, no, it's not so bad at all, and we do understand shortage of personnel, there's no budget. So it was really difficult to let them talk about things that bother them. But eventually there's one critical incident I remember. There was one lady, and she sat in that big room where they were eating together, and she said, I'm not going to pay for this meal. And the whole room got silent because she stood up. She was a large woman. I'm not going to pay for this food. She thought it was terrible, and she didn't want to do it anymore. And that was sort of burgerlijke ongehoorzaamheid. She did something that other people said, yeah, we do not have to accept this. We can bring this issue to the fore, to the managers and to the board of the nursing home. That was an important dynamic in that project. But then I encountered another difficult moment where people got into a sort of negative complaining mode of all the things that were bad in the nursing home. And they felt no room at all to think about possible solutions. And I didn't know how to proceed. So I honestly said, well, perhaps this doesn't work at all. Perhaps I have to quit. But then they said, no, we want to continue. And then I thought we need another more creative approach. And that was a key experience again. So I asked them to imagine and dream what would be the best future they could think of. And I had all kinds of papers and colors, and I asked them, just make a sort of bricolage of what you think would be the most beautiful nursing home, the best meal, whatever you like. And then the energy came back, and quite soon some of the ladies said, well, we have a kitchen here in the nursing homes, but they closed it. How great would it be if we could reopen that kitchen and if we could hire the chef? And so here the question to dream, to use your imagination, and to have the creative method really helped the process forward.
Beautiful, but it starts with taking them seriously, yeah? Seeing them go researchers.
They know so much. I mean, yeah, it's their lives.
How were the professionals in the nursing home?
How did they respond? Well, it was interesting that especially the lower position people in the kitchen got very interested because they had ideas how to make this ambience more attractive with candles, and they had ideas about more beautiful desserts, and so they got on board. And it was also nice to see that the location manager also thought, well, these ladies are not only complaining, they are coming up with interesting ideas. Perhaps I need to do something like that. So he opened a captain's dinner each Friday. People could enter his room and have a captain's dinner and talk with him about what they thought would be wonderful to organize or something they were concerned about. So he embraced the idea, and the care personnel also got a new idea of what older people were. In their eyes, older people were someone who you have to take care of, they are dependent. But now they encountered these, they called themselves the taste buddies, these older ladies. Now they encountered the taste buddies, and those taste buddies had all kinds of notions and ideas how you cook things, and it helped to see their own pre-assumptions and stereotypical ideas they had of older residents.
Oh, that's a beautiful notion. Create taste buddies.
And they had developed a collective identity. And I think such a collective identity is also needed to foster change. They were really, like I said in the other example, there was a relational empowerment among these women who were initially kind of afraid and anxious, and now they were proud, they were supporting and encouraging each other. It had an enormous impact on the whole atmosphere in that nursing home.
So one of the keys I take from your story is that change was the creative method you introduced, like dreaming and envisioning your ideal future.
Yeah.
And maybe that goes for other creative methods too. What's your experience? How do you use creative methods?
I've used it in all kinds of ways. My first study was in psychiatry, and that was part of my PhD. And I had to do an evaluation of a rehabilitation program. And my first struggle was that the professional said, no, you don't need to talk to the patients. We have already talked to the patients. We have those surveys. We know what they want. We know how satisfied they are. And I said, well, if I want to evaluate the program, I need to talk, of course, to the professionals, but I also want to talk to the patients. And they really made me anxious because they said, yeah, but if you're going to talk to them, they might become psychotic. And these people are, they have a psychiatric disease. But in the end, I succeeded. So I thought, I'm there, I can talk to them. And I started to do interviews, and that didn't work at all. Big failure. I only got very cryptic answers. I could tell they were afraid of me, very social, desirable answers. This was not at all the way to go. I sat in front of them, they were just super afraid of, again, a professional who is sort of taking an exam, asking you all those questions, and you either do it good or you do it bad, and you don't know what comes from that. So I had to think of something different. And then I decided to do, sort of participant observation. I just went with them. A couple of patients worked in the garden. I went with them to the garden. I worked with them in the garden, sat next to them, talked to them, and got a relationship. And then there was trust. And from trust, they were willing to tell me stories. So not sitting in front of people, but sitting next to people. Because, of course, the gaze, people who are staring at you, who have all these ideas about what you cannot do, about your pathology. So sitting next, that really worked. And then from there, I also started to work with images, with photos to really deepen their story. I gathered a whole set of photographs that also had emotions, different colors, black and white, and then asked them to choose a picture. What was the picture that resonates with your feeling? And then they started to talk about themselves, also in the group. So the photo elicitation was getting much richer material, really valid, authentic material. And that, of course, also is changing something in people's life. It helps them to transform and to also to get more grip on their story. Because if you don't have the possibility to share your own life story, it will be very scattered and chaotic. And if you can talk to people, then you will slowly develop your story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. So you will have narrative autonomy. It will give you not only the witnessing justice, but also the hermeneutic justice, because people will ask you questions and it will help them to reconsider what has actually happened to me. So yeah, the creative methods are very well suited for individual transformation, but also in a group and within an organization. And it touches on many things that are insayable, but really meaningful for people. Yeah.
Okay, so in my experience, many research projects are still about talking and about the rational part of being human. What I take from your examples is that you far more see people as a whole. And what I really like is how you said not sitting in front of people, but next to them.
Yeah.
I think that's very important on creating a level playing field and building trust and
Yeah.
developing
Yeah.
relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. And also acknowledging as an expert that sometimes you do not know what to do. So the not knowing and really experiencing, I do not have the answer. I do not know how to solve this situation, and share that with the group. And from there, search for other ways to enter into a genuine contact. That is, I think, very important, that you are really responsive to what does the situation need. I don't know. What I do doesn't work. How can we, together find a way to, yeah, to
Move on.
meet and to share?
Okay. And in my practice, I often see that it's very difficult for experts to say, I don't know, because we are born and raised as an expert to know things.
That is difficult and sobering. And again, also one of the most beautiful things, if you then feel, but if we do it together, we come much further. And it's much more a shared and co-owned project. And also the resonance, the emotional connection that grows from that is so, yeah, it gives me also a lot. It's mutual. It's mutual.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for sharing your wisdom. I love your stories. As a checkout, is there something reflecting on your stories which you would like to share?
Well, perhaps one last, we talked a bit about how I work also with artists or people who have an artist background and are also medical or health professional. And one of the beautiful things is that artists are looking differently at situations, are much more focused on energy levels, on tensions, joy, and they can give that back to a group. Mirror, the group may have a very different perception of what they are doing. So I can work with creative methods, but working with an artist, in my experience, is also really helpful and fruitful if you work with groups.
Maybe you can give a brief example of maybe what you told me about think it was a dancer.
Yeah, Tamar is a dancer and she was there when I worked with a group, and she just sat there and she observed the group, she listened to the group, and after a while I asked her, can you dance for us what you heard and saw? And then she chose a song and she improvised a geography for us. And people in the room got really emotional because they said, yeah, this is the struggle in my work. And I have all those words, but this is how I feel. And seeing you dancing feels like an honoring of my emotions, that you have seen and heard me. And I can now embrace it myself more because I've seen it. Yeah. How difficult the situation is I am in.
Thank you. I think we could talk for hours, maybe to be continued. So thank you very much for sharing.
Yeah, thank you, Tony, for the nice conversation.
Thank you for listening. My name is Tony van der Zouwen, and I would like this wisdom to reach as many people as possible. You can help by rating and sharing the show with your network. Follow us and listen to exciting stories on creating a level playing field for collaboration. A new episode will be posted every 2 weeks. Together, we can make a difference in the world.